Greetings, scholars, and welcome to this My Peeps Family Tree presentation by yours truly, Jamila Gibson, for EPSI 6170E, Race and Racism with Dr. Grantham during the spring semester of 2023 at University of Georgia. Go Dogs! So, starting off with myself, I was born in Indianapolis in 1980. I'm my mother's only child. I'm my father's youngest child of three, possibly four. The jury is still out on that. It's been a rumor for years, but hasn't been confirmed. My highest education level to be completed, by God's grace, this summer will be an EDS in educational psychology with a focus in gifted and creative education. My current occupation is as a Spanish teacher to middle and high school students at a Metro Atlanta private school. So, stepping back to the second generation, my dad is one of 9 kids. He was born in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. His highest education level is an associate's degree in sociology, which I find interesting because I always knew that he didn't graduate from high school, so my guess is he got his GED. I didn't clarify that point with him, but he completed his GED, but then went on to get his associate's degree, which we have in common. I also did not graduate from high school because of some poor choices I made. I was a rebellious, wild child, and it was only by God's grace that I even went back to get my GED and then set on a path to gain as much education as I could. So here we are today. His occupation over the years has been as a salesman. He's been a counselor for corrections facilities, a counselor through his church's ministry. He's also driven trucks. And regarding the question about racism that he experienced, he did mention a couple of incidents. One was he remembers being in some context with his dad and his dad's boss, who ran a farm. And for some reason, my dad was answering the boss in an inappropriate way. And my granddad, his dad, like slapped his face because he wasn't saying yes sir, no sir, etc., etc. And that apparently stuck with my dad and just really, pained him. He also describes growing up in a community with all Black people. He went to an all Black school. Yeah, that's enough on him. I'll stop there. So then my mom, she was born in Indianapolis in 1953. Her highest level of education is some college. She did not complete her degree. I have encouraged her off and on over the years to go back, but hey, she has made a life for herself and is a retired administrative assistant. She worked in that industry for decades. And she also mentioned a couple of incidents of racism. One in particular she described was when she was working at, a well-known company that is headquartered here in Atlanta. And she just remembers being passed over for jobs, and those one particular job that she describes was given to a white lady who worked in a different department, didn't have the experience to work in the department where my mom was. And my mom she said that once this lady was promoted over her, when people would come to my mom asking questions, she would send them directly to this supervisor of hers. And after a season of that, the white lady stepped down from the job and went somewhere else. Apparently she couldn't handle the responsibility and workload managing people in an area where she didn't have a whole lot of expertise. So I thought that was pretty comical. My mom also grew up in an all black neighborhood. She says she remembers going to school with white students when she reached high school. And one year she said that there were quite a few race riots. I don't know if it was the first year that schools were integrated. I mean, she was born in, I said 53. My mom was born in 55. She was born in 55, which means in high school it may have been 65. Let me see, about 68 or 69. So that's around the time when schools started integrating. So maybe it was the first year. All right, so enough about that. Both of my parents, which I found very interesting given how much this topic comes up in conversations about Native American heritage, and they both say that we have some Native American heritage. My dad says we've got some Sioux and some Cherokee. My mom, I don't think she specified which tribe, but I found that ironic because, I mean, we don't have any DNA testing to prove it, but this is what has been passed down for a few generations on both sides of my family. All right, moving back to the third generation. My paternal grandparents were Joe Radford and Elnora Radford. They had 9 kids together. My great grandfather's highest level of education was 8th grade. He worked as a farmer and a pig slaughterer. And then my paternal grandmother, she only finished 6th grade and worked as a domestic worker per my dad. I forgot to put that in here. So on my mom's side, my grandparents, who I was much closer with, had stronger relationship with. I mean, I spent summers at their house. They were Edwin Kennedy and Delois Kennedy. They were married for over 50 years before my granddad passed away. They both completed high school. My granddad worked as a skilled tradesman at General Motors from the time as far back as I can remember. That is where he worked, and he retired from there and moved down to Atlanta with my grandmother from Indianapolis. And then my grandmother, I know she worked in the post office for a few years, but for most of their child rearing years, she was a homemaker, which makes sense. I mean, they had 9 kids. All right, so 4th generation. My great grandparents on my dad's side, I don't know anything about them except their names listed here. Don't know dates of birth. But then on my mom's side, I do have a bit more information because we as a family do reunions every couple of years. And during these reunions, there's always a family tree presentation, and more is being added every time we meet. And so I do have the some dates of birth and names going back to 5 generations on my paternal grandfather's side. So I wish I knew more about them. And yeah, hopefully we will find out more someday. All right, so then my maternal great grandparents are kind of sketchy. Mary White was for sure my grandmother's mother, but Mr. Bailey was not her dad. He was actually married to another woman when my mom was conceived. Oh, wait a minute. No. Yeah, I don't know. It gets really confusing because there was just a lot of adultery and just all kinds of stuff going on. So yeah, that's that. Now, one thing that I have been wanting to do is get some t-shirts for my children that say I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. But I wonder if any of my ancestors ever hoped that their descendants would be much better off than they were. Maybe they hoped for land ownership or better education or being treated with the same dignity and respect that white people demanded of them. But yeah, I mean, this activity, this assignment has really caused me to think more deeply and to ask more questions and to want to know more. So I really appreciate being able to do this. There's a lot that's not here, but this is a good start. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thanks for listening.